In this video, we're going to learn how to use the conversion factor reference sheet that you'll have access to during your physics course. First off, I'd like to point out that at the bottom, the conversion factors are written in a way that's very easy to understand. For instance, they have 12 inches equals 1 foot. That's a very clear way to write a conversion factor. 3 feet equals 1 yard. 5,280 feet equals 1 mile. All of these at the bottom are written very clearly. Whether you're dealing with length that you're measuring, whether you're dealing with mass, or in some cases weight, whether you're dealing with volume. Now, temperature, you have to actually use an equation, so it's written as an equation form instead of a conversion form. But the length, mass, weight, and volume on this table are clearly written out in terms of a conversion factor. Up here is where students will sometimes have difficulty when prefixes are used dealing with metric to metric conversions. So any instance you're dealing with metric to metric conversions, prefixes are used, and reading this can become difficult for students. So what I want to do is spend a little bit of time talking about what this will look like in terms of conversion factors. First off, what I would like to do is talk about the metric system for just a minute. And if we are measuring mass in the metric system, the units of mass is going to be grams. So the amount of matter, or the amount of matter is going to be measured in grams. If we are measuring the length in the metric system, the length is going to be measured in meters. If we're measuring in volume, the standard or unit is going to be in liters. And then if you were measuring time, you would be measuring in seconds. Each of these are called the base unit of measurement. The grams is the base unit of measurement for mass. The meter is the base unit of measurement for length. The liter is the base unit of measurement for volume, and the second is the base unit measurement for time. Then each one of these base units may have a prefix associated with them. So, for instance, when we look up here and it says hecto, and then it's base, 100 base equals 1 hectobase, I wish they would have written this as 100 base equals 1 hectobase. Each one of these prefixes should have the term base listed after it. All of these up here, and then all of them here. I don't know why this conversion sheet does not have the word base after each of the prefix. It would help us understand. So what I did is I created a worksheet to help you understand how to read this conversion chart. For instance, the first question asks, write the appropriate conversion factor used between meters and kilometers. Write the appropriate conversion factor used between meters and kilometers. The first thing that I'm going to realize is the prefix I'm dealing with is kilo. So when I go to my prefix chart, I'm going to find kilo. And it turns out if I go to the far right, it says 1,000 base is equal to 1 kilo base. Well, what is the base unit that I'm dealing with? It looks like it's meters. The base unit is meters. I go down here, and is that a Common base unit, yes, for length is meters. So when it asks write the appropriate conversion factor between meters and kilometers, I go down and I find kilo, I go over and it says 1,000 base. So the way I would write that is 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilo. And remember, they left base off, but they shouldn't have. We would write it as 1 kilometer or kilometer. Sometimes these are abbreviated, and they will be written as 1,000 lowercase m equals 1 km in an abbreviation. That is my conversion factor between kilometers and meters. Now, when would we use that conversion factor? We would use that conversion factor such as if somebody asked, how many meters are in 5,000 kilometers? Let's say we wanted to know that. How many meters are in 5,000 kilometers? Well, as in our previous two videos, how would we get started? We would write down 5,000 kilometers. Then we would make an empty fraction. And we would find our conversion factor. Well, guess what? We just found our conversion factor. 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. So how do we write this in? Well, if there's kilometers here on top, I want to make sure I put the kilometer on the bottom. So I write 1 kilometer on the bottom and 1,000 meters on the top. What does that allow me to do? The reason I put the kilometers on the bottom is so that I could cross out my units, and I get 5,000 times 1,000, which would be 5 million meters. That would be my answer. So, write the appropriate conversion factor between meters and kilometers. I went and found kilometers. 1,000 meters, my base unit, based off the bottom, is equal to 1 kilometer, 1 kilo base, the meters. So I wrote my conversion factor down, and in this example, I would use the conversion factor this way. I would put the 1,000 meters on the top and the 1 kilometer on the bottom. So it says the conversion factor can be written as a fraction in the form of, well, I just used it as 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. That's one way I can write that conversion factor. If this is equal to this, then we can write it this way. But what if I was given this question? How many kilometers are in 5,000 meters? Well, if I'm given this question, I'm going to write down 5,000 meters. I'm going to make an empty fraction, but this time note, the meters are on the top, so I have to put meters on the bottom. So when I go to my conversion factor, 1,000 meters equals 1 kilometer. Now I'm going to put the 1,000 meters on the bottom and the 1 kilometer on the top. So now the meters will cross out and I get 5,000, but this time the thousand's on the bottom, so it's 5,000 divided by 1,000, and that will come out to 5 kilometers. So this conversion factor can be written as 1,000 meters over 1 kilometer. It can also be written as 1 kilometer over 1,000 meters. And here are the two examples. Once you find the conversion factor, we may write it one way, or we may write it the opposite way. Because these two conversion factors are equal to each other, when we divide them, it really equals 1. I know that 1,000 divided by 1 is not 1, but 1,000 meters is the same thing as 1 kilometer, so when you divide them, you get 1. I know 1 divided by 1,000 is not 1, but because 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meters, when you divide 1 kilometer divided by 1,000 meters, it also equals 1. So when these two things are equal to each other, which we learned from our conversion chart, when you divide them, either way, you're going to get 1. So when we put them in this way to cross out kilometers to get meters, or we can put it in the opposite way to cross out meters and get kilometers. Either one is correct. I hope this helps in understanding how to read the conversion factor reference sheet.